Hello and welcome to the Friendly Confines right here at the Midco SN Studios in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm Jason Andera without my friend Tom Neiman today. Somehow I'll find a way to get through it, but good luck, Tom, on the road with the Jacks. We've got a lot of football to talk about tonight, and we had a lot going on in South Dakota as some teams were playing their last regular season game. Some have one more week to play before they hit the playoffs. And things were even more confusing in North Dakota, where they had no football on this Friday night. They had all their games on either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of this week, and a lot more games coming up tomorrow on Saturday. Jody Norstadt will be here to fill us in on everything that happened throughout the week and everything that we can expect in the coming days. Let's start by taking a tour through the scores in South Dakota. This score is in the fourth quarter right now. Roosevelt up 64-16. I'm looking at my computer. It just went final. The Riders get a win after going down early to Watertown, but holding on for the victory. Lincoln went across the state to Stevens and got a convincing 50-21 win. More 11 AAA action across the state as number 3 played number 4 tonight. And that score looks crazy. But it's even crazier because Brandon Valley put together a huge rally in the second half after a 2-point deficit at halftime. We've got highlights and post-game reaction coming up from that one. Aberdeen Central put up a fight against O'Gorman tonight, but O'Gorman prevails and outlasts the Golden Eagles. Aberdeen could have won a game right there and secured a playoff spot, but now they've got to play Watertown next week, and the winner is in. O'Gorman holds on to their home field spot in the quarterfinals with that win. We've got highlights of that one coming up in just a bit. Rapid City Central came across the state to play Washington, and Washington put their best performance of the year together. We'll have highlights of that one. Michael Johnson had a huge night running the football for the Warriors. And then Pierre takes on Mitchell, and that was about like the score said. It was all Pierre. 55-0 lead at halftime, and they put it on cruise control from there. Highlights and post-game interview with Steve Steele coming up later in the show. Mitchell Sturgis, this is actually not the right score here. We've got Huron taking on Tri-Valley tonight, and Huron was upended by Tri-Valley. And we'll get back to some of those AA scores in just a little bit. Some of those scores were from last week. But yeah, AA was a crazy night tonight. You saw Pierre with a dominant victory. Mitchell has to play Huron next week, and we talked about it. Huron lost to Tri-Valley, but by the way the seed points work out, next week's game between Huron and Mitchell will determine who has the tiebreaker on that side of the ball. A lot more great games coming across the wire as we speak. In 11A, things were crazy. 2 weeks in a row now, Lennox has pulled off what you would call an upset. And here's some more scores from that 11A battle. Dell Rapids played West Central. A crazy comeback attempt by West Central comes up short as the Warriors stay undefeated on the road. And we talked about this when Lennox played Madison, and Lennox needed 18 fourth quarter points to come back to get the victory in this one. Their quarterback Josh Arlt threw for 255 yards to their main man Caleb Metcalf, who caught 4 passes for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns, but the game-winning touchdown was with less than a minute to play as they take out Madison. That will leave some repercussions in the 11A standings as we look at them tomorrow. Christian was the first team to score against Canton in the last month, over a month. And even though they gave up a couple points, they got the victory. Highlights of that one coming up. And this next game was close until the end. Dakota Valley pulls away in the second half for the 41-20 win as they get back on the winning track. 11B, we had some interesting games, but Bridgewater Emory Ethan had no problem staying undefeated and staying number 1. And then a couple of number 1 teams from different classes squared up in Canistota tonight. And I'll tell you what, Viborg-Hurley is going to put the state on notice. Everybody's been talking about 9A, 9A, 9A. Well, look at this. A team from 9AA has their way with the number 1 team in 9A. Highlights and reaction coming up shortly with that one. And a couple other 9-man scores. Coleman Egan takes on Arlington Lake Preston. Big night for Eli Bowen. 164 yards on the ground. Nate Tolley doing his thing as they get a shutout against Arlington Lake Preston. And then how about this one? Britton Hekla and Warner. They got mixed up in a very good game. Warner getting healthy for the first time this year gave Britton Heckle all they could handle. We'll talk about that one a little bit later as well. On the North Dakota boards, we talked about it. All these games did not happen tonight, but we had some really exciting action as Davies couldn't hold home field as Cheyenne pulled out the win. We've got highlights of that one coming up from Jody shortly. West Fargo, another important win on the year. They just keep surprising you week after week as they take out Shanley. Highlights of that one coming from Jody in just a bit. More AAA action. Bismarck Century plays their second game in 3 days. They played on Monday and Wednesday. Monday's game was a lot tougher than this game on Wednesday against Dickinson as they pulled that one out. Kidder County took on Grant County Flasher, and the Wolves got a big win in that one. Cavalier defended their home field in the battle of 1 versus 2. It went all the way to overtime, and trust me, you want to see the highlights of this one. There are no white jerseys left. It's all straight mud. And for more on what happened in North Dakota throughout the week and what's coming up next week, we'll throw it over to Jody Norstedt in West Fargo. Jody?
Thanks, Jandy. Yeah, what a hectic week. We had football on Monday, we had football on Tuesday, football on Wednesday, and then we'll have football tomorrow as well. So a lot of things going on. We had 1 versus 2 in the state 9-man in a mud bowl, and we're going to show you those highlights in a little bit. But let's start with 3A because it was an interesting night with a lot on the line. Davies meeting Cheyenne in a battle between 2 of the best in the East, and also West Fargo playing Shanley, another battle between 2 of the best teams in the East. Let's take a look at the highlights. Quarterback Reed Hartness and the Eagles have been locked in despite having to play multiple home games away from home because of field conditions. South was the home side on Wednesday as Cheyenne tried for his 3rd straight win in the series. Again, Davies 2, Cheyenne 4 on the latest rankings. First big play of the game, NDSU commit Ty Satter intercepts the pass. That's why most QBs don't throw anywhere near his direction. The 6'1 senior nearly returns it for a pick 6. He's out at the 1. Next play, Sam Mosier gets the final yard behind the offensive line. Eagles go up 6-0. Davies missing their kicker because of the state soccer tournament. Cheyenne leans on its ground game for the next drive. Senior fullback Zach Rogers with a huge night. 23-yard score, 7-6 Cheyenne after the extra point. Another drive, another touchdown. Ethan Ency up the middle from 5 yards out, and it's 12-7 Eagles after the failed 2-pointer. Anything you can do, we can do. Tyler Terhark moves in at quarterback and scores on the 2-yard plunge to put the Mustangs back on top 14-12. This is why these two teams are the top rushing teams in the EDC. We get another turnover on the ensuing possession. Reed Hartness wants to get it to Satter, but Matt Wagner steps in front of it for the interception. Cheyenne capitalizes too. Terhark running a route against his future Bison teammate in Satter, and the Mustangs get the better of this one. Grant Workentine with a pass on the money to Terhark. Great touchdown catch. The lead is 9, 21-12 going into halftime. After a successful onside kick to start the second half, Davies gets it back to a 1-score game. Hartness is in, 32 rushing attempts for him to go with 128 yards. Davies head coach Jason Thiel just telling his defense, we need a stop. But the only problem was that the Mustangs weren't slowing down. The EDC's top rusher, Barika Penu, 37 yards, foot race with Satter. The Mustangs in control 28-18 midway through the third. Davies feeling the sense of urgency now. Hartness goes to his playmaker. Great throw and great catch by Satter for the 40-yard gain. But after a penalty on the next play, the turnover bug strikes. Hartness juggles this snap and it hits the man in motion. Loose ball, and Rogers recovers for Cheyenne. He was all over the place. Mustangs eventually add another Terhark touchdown run and hold off Davies for the 35-26 win. So Cheyenne pulls even with Davies for first place in the East, and the Mustangs can win the region title with a win next week against South. Afterward, I asked Tyler Terhark about going head-to-head with a talented player like Satter.
That was fun. Ty's a great guy. We're really good buddies off the field, but on the field, I don't know if we're too good of friends, that's for sure. Grant threw a absolute dime on that throw. It's impossible to cover that when that ball is just perfectly thrown right in the front left end zone. So I feel like this week we had our best week of practice. We went hard every single day and we really executed today. It's so easy to run and pass when our line's just doing their job, and they did an amazing job tonight.
Shanley ranked third in state, taking on West Fargo. The Deacons needing a win to join Cheyenne and Davies at 5-1 in conference play, but the Packers, well, they had different plans. On the first drive, Dustin Mertz will keep it on the option, makes one guy miss, and then truck sticks another guy before finding his way to the end zone from 18 yards out. 7-0 Packers QBs can lay the lumber too, I guess. Shanley finds a rhythm midway in the first as Cooper Mattern throws it downfield to Talon Hopper, and look at him go up and get it. A high point catch by the leading receiver in the conference. That led to an Emmett Kenny field goal to make it 7-3 home team. After being set up with a long run by Joel McIntosh, the Packers get a field goal. Landon Pritchard from 31 yards out makes it 10-3 for the guys in green. After a sloppy second quarter full of fumbles, punts, turnovers on downs, Shanley gets a 33-yard field goal with Kenny. 5 seconds left before the half, makes it 10-6 at the break. Kicker highlights, love it. Early in the second, Mattern with a quick pass to Quincy Smith, but a la Peanut Tillman in the NFL, Marcus Gully gouges this one. Fumble recovered by Carter Barancott for the Pack. A few plays later, West Fargo finds themselves at the 32, and Mertz keeps it on the option. He'll make a couple moves. Deacon defenders are trying to force a fumble. Not a good idea. Mertz is in the end zone, and he's pumped. West Fargo leading the third-ranked team in the state 17-6. Late in the third now, Mattern trying to float one over the middle, but Junior Bally makes a diving interception. And then how about a little celebration afterwards? Then with only 6:27 left, Shanley still down 11. Mattern is going to roll out and throw it deep for the 26-yard touchdown to Smith. And hold the phone. Shanley gets the 2-point conversion, makes it 17-14. Deacons get the ball back with a chance to take the lead, but Mattern is going to be off the target, and another Shanley turnover. And this is Barancott on the interception for the proverbial nail in the coffin. West Fargo with a bit of an upset, winning 17-14. Just a reminder for the rest of the EDC, the Packers are still here. Mertz is looking good too. We asked the Packer playmaker about the importance of his big touchdown runs.
That definitely sparked our whole offense, but none of that happens without our line pushing, making blocks every game, our running back hitting holes, and our receivers catching the ball. I couldn't have done it without him. Yeah, it really gives our offense confidence. We know we're going to get the stops that we need, and we know we're going to get turnovers here and there, so that really sparks our offense to really get going.
All right, you couldn't ask for a wilder scene in football on Tuesday. 1 versus 2 and 9-man on a flooded field. Top-ranked New Rockford-Sheyenne traveling to enemy territory in Cavalier. No scoring in the first, but plenty of mud. In the second, Bolt Belquist takes a direct snap, cuts to the outside, scoots up the sideline for the 43-yard touchdown run for the game's first points. 21 touchdowns on the year now for Belquist. Toward the end of the half, Tornado QB Colton Richensky takes the QB keeper. If you can find him, you can tackle him. That is if the guys aren't blocking in front of him. He's like a thoroughbred running on a wet track at the Kentucky Derby. It's an 80-yard touchdown. We're tied at 6 at the half. The playing surface definitely slowing down the offenses that average over 50 points per game. Combined 12 in the first half. Just being able to see was a bit of a chore. Players wiping their eyes off all night. First play of the fourth, Richensky keeps it himself again, somehow keeps his footing on the jukes, scores again, and the home team is up 14-6, their first lead of the night. You can't even tell who's who at this point. Everyone is team mud. On the next drive, you mean to tell me they can throw in this? Johnny Grand and Nathan Hallsworth, who comes down with it, strolls into the end zone. They tied up after the two-pointer, and apparently the jerseys weren't muddy enough. How about some overtime to determine the Region 1 champ? Rockets get the first possession. Hunter Thompson, 10 yards. You betcha. Players just slipping off him. But Cavalier is able to shut down the two-point attempt for the Rockets, so the home team has a shot to win it. First, they need the touchdown. Crowd cheering them on. Tanner Urlaub takes the handoff, and at this point, just stay on your feet and keep moving forward. He finds the end zone, and we're tied at 20. Up next, the two-point attempt to win it. Cavalier gives it to Urlaub again, and I'd imagine this is what it's like trying to tackle a wild boar in the mud. He slips into the end zone and puts an end to it. Cavalier wins a thrilling Mud Bowl, knocking off top-ranked New Rockford-Sheyenne 22-20 in overtime. Mom, we have some laundry to do. Here's what the Tornadoes had to say after the big win on a muddy night.
It's always fun to get up, big game like this, and both teams, I mean, they're a great team. New Rockford's a great team, and it's a fun game to play against them. Our community put a great effort into getting this field prepared for us. They spent hours out here, so just getting to play on our home field, senior night, it's great blessing to be out here, and it was just fun. Just a fun game.
Well, our boys will play on anything. It doesn't matter what the surface is. We adapt to whatever it is and take a great deal of pride playing at home. Our kids call it a sacred ground, and they wanted to play here more than anything tonight. And I'm just glad that we got the field ready to go and we're able to play this game at home. Our line, we've kind of rolled behind those guys all year long, and they did a great job of getting a great push on that 2-point conversion and victory for the Tornadoes.
Absolutely crazy. Now that game was scheduled to be played last Friday, and this one was too, but this one got moved to Monday this week. Kidder County and Grant County Flash are squaring off. Kidder County and Peyton Coughlin starting the scoring off. This pitch and burst through the whole 43-yard touchdown scamper. Kidder County up 8-0. Kidder County again driving, and once again Coughlin gets another pitch. Look at the room he has to run. He's into the end zone again, this time from 13 yards out. Kidder County up 14-0. Wolves keep howling. They're at the 6-yard line when Jonah Harder keeps it himself, spinning his way in. Watch out for that puddle, though. Kidder County 20-0. Head coach Jack Biesterfeld trying to keep his squad locked in. Grant County Flasher trying to lean on its pass game. Jace Freeze to Greg Gracier for a nice gain. But just when the Storm started to look comfortable, they turn it over. Thomas Bryant on the move, but Parker Hager gonna knock this ball loose with the hit, and the Hungry Wolves are there to recover. Then 2 plays later, Hager makes an impact on the offensive end too as he slips a tackle and looks like he's got a house call, but look at the hustle from Connor Ottmar here to bring him down. How does he catch him? This is pretty impressive. Right there, right at the end, but soon after, Jonah Harder is back in the end zone on a sneak. Kidder County gets a 2-point conversion to go up 28-0. Kidder County really wanted to keep the shutout intact as Tristan Pantzer picks off Freeze, and Pantsner gets a good return off the pick before getting arm tackled. Literally, watch this. Kidder County led at the half 28-0. That looked like it might have hurt. The visitors score just once more as Kidder County's line makes a huge hole for Isaiah Harder, casually strolling in for the score. Kidder County wins at 36-0 to extend its win streak to 5 games. The players understand that if you can run the ball well in October, you're setting yourself up for a playoff push.
Our line blocked really good, and it's just key with the line. They make their blocks and backs read off them. Make sure we keep our feet close and underneath us so we can make our cuts and get out in the open field and do what backs do best, is run fast and get as many yards as they can.
You don't know with the weather we had. We didn't really have outside practices. We do have a veteran crew, though, and they really showed up to play. Line, they take real good pride in blocking for these guys, and their backs ran hard, and they hung onto the ball pretty well tonight with the wet conditions, so very, very happy. We don't tell the kids, but as a coaching staff, we were really looking for 3 stops. If we got 3 stops and we felt we were going to be in good shape, we really didn't think we were going to blank them out. They're a good offensive team. We just played a little better tonight.
And look out for Kidder County, one of those teams on the rise. And how about Cavalier, New Rockford-Sheyenne, Jandy? That was an absolute blast. I don't know how they're going to get the mud out of those jerseys, but that was pretty cool too. Coming up in zone coverage, we'll get you ready for a big Saturday of high school football. A lot of playoff implications on the line. We'll sort everything out coming up in zone coverage. Back to you, my friend.
I don't think you can get that mud out. Those uniforms will never look the same. Some of the best stuff I've seen all year on Varsity Sports Live. Well, we've got a lot more coming up for you South Dakota high school football fans, including a great battle of top-ranked teams in 11 AAA and 11 AA, and a couple of 9-man teams with the number 1 next to their names. Well, one had a pretty good night. A lot more coming up after this.
Varsity Sports Live on Midco Sports Network is presented by Avera Orthopedics, South Dakota State University, and Farmers Union Insurance.
Hey everybody, can you feel that? Football playoff season is just around the corner. Some games this week decided if teams would make the playoffs or didn't make the playoffs. And some teams are done with their regular season as of the end of tonight. And then there are some teams like Brandon Valley and Harrisburg who are fighting to keep home field advantage when they do get to the playoffs in just a couple of weeks. The number 3 team against the number 4 team both came in at 5-2. When I talked to the coaches, they both thought how many possessions and how long they could keep the ball would decide this game. Well, this is Mark Muchelkanaus, who gives Brandon Valley great field position on the opening kickoff, and that would lead to a touchdown for Brandon. They were up 6-0, but then come Jai Rowert and the throwing Tigers. A big play to get them back down the field, and Anders Clayton caps off the drive. They get their extra point. They're up 7-6. They held most of the lead through the first half. Into the second quarter now, Jack Tigan dumps it off to Anders Clayton. So nice to have that guy back after being out last week. They're up 14-6 in the second quarter. Now Thomas Golton and the Brandon Valley Lynx come back. They unleash the passing game. A nice little shot to Cole Siliasen. He comes up with the score. They didn't convert again, 14-12. Then we go to Jack Tigan, who it's not his fault that this got tipped, but it is Jackson Hilton's fault that he took it all the way back to the house. Jackson Hilton and Brandon take the lead, 19-14. They look like they're in control of this game, but right before the end of the first half, Harrisburg finds a way to get it to their big playmaker, Jai Rowert, for the touchdown. They were up 21-19 at the half. This thing looked really close, but it wouldn't stay close for long. We had blocked punts. We had big plays on both sides of the ball. There's a blocked punt. And then Thomas Golton unleashed the passing game in the second half, and they unleashed their star junior, Jackson Hilton. Came off a concussion last week. He did not look like he had any effects from that concussion. Had a huge game on the night. And then the second pick six of the day, Mark Mutchelknaus takes it back to the house. Huge play in the kicking game. Huge play on the defensive side of the ball. It was an avalanche. Jackson Hilton ended up with 3 touchdowns in the game. Thomas Golton and company started to throw the ball instead of going with the ground and pound that they have gone with so much this year. And boy, it paid off. And Chad Garrow, by the way, became the all-time winningest coach in Brandon Valley football history. We've got some reaction coming up to this in zone coverage in the next segment. Let's move to the number 1 team in 11 AAA. It was Roosevelt, and they played against Watertown early on, though. I'll tell you what, Watertown got up early on this one, taking advantage of some turnovers. Fumble by Brady Dannenbring. Evan Falconer comes up with the recovery, and then they go back to their sophomore, Tyree Nave. He missed 4 games, came back last week, had a huge game, came back again this week with an 85-yard rushing touchdown right up the middle. And I'll tell you what, Brady Dannenbring was on fire tonight. Finds Caden Jordan for the touchdown. He was nearly perfect, 17 of 21 on the night. And then another Kusler touchdown. Aaron this time will take the Wildcat in for the score, and they would roll through the second half of this game with no problem whatsoever. They put up 60-plus points in the victory over Watertown, 64-16, and they fumbled the ball 3 times early in this one. Watertown had a lead early in this one, and that's not the first time Watertown's had an early lead, folks. They've had an early lead against Harrisburg, Washington, Roosevelt, and couldn't hang on to any of those games. But the way things played out, their game against Aberdeen Central next week, the winner is in the playoffs. So a huge game for Watertown, and Roosevelt holds on to that number 1 seed. Let's move out west, where Lincoln, maybe the hottest team in 11 AAA, takes on Rapid City Stevens. Stevens at that 6th seed right now, trying to fight their way up. And look at this, Hunter Merkley gets things started. We were wondering when he was going to come to life. Well, his second half of the season, he's done just that. Then Isaiah Robinson shakes a few defenders in for the 9-yard touchdown, and Lincoln is up early in this one. Colton Hartford and the Raider passing attack, well, they'll put it on the shelf for a play. They'll say, hey, I can run the ball a little bit, 40 yards, and it's fumbled near the goal line, but look at that, Michael Norman on the spot finds a way to come through with the touchdown. Lincoln back on track, though, with their junior quarterback, Tommy Thompson, finds Hunter Merkley. Yes, he got the feet down. Touchdown for the 20-yarder. And then another fumble by Colton Hartford. Give credit to this Lincoln Patriot defense. They are ball hawks. Turn the field around. Tommy Thompson scrambles, finds Leo Kay. Yeah, he's more than just okay. Leo Kay with the big touchdown catch for Lincoln, and they started to cruise in this one. Hartford, though, did find Bridger Nesbitt, their leading receiver, as far as yards per catch on the season. They've got 3 leading receivers. They kind of rotate throughout the whole year. Branson Keel and Nesbitt and Norman, but they weren't enough against Tommy Thompson tonight with the quarterback sneak, 8-yard touchdown, and they continued to roll in this one. Elliott Hackett, great to see Elliott Hackett back on the field. He's been one of those guys, been hurt most of the season, came up with a huge touchdown at the end of the game, a 32-yard score, and they get the win, 50-21. So with 1 week left to play, Lincoln and Roosevelt, both 7-1. The tiebreaker right now favors Roosevelt, but both have a chance to secure home field advantage next week in the playoffs. Let's move back to the east side. Aberdeen Central, actually this is Washington it looks like, taking on Rapid City Central and Michael Thompson. That was a huge run right there to get things started for Washington, and they finally got things clicking in this game. Max Thompson, their quarterback, keeps it and finds his way into the end zone. That was one of 3 touchdowns for him on the night. And then Trevor Sagnas on the defensive line comes up with the loose ball, and it was all Washington tonight. And you'll see that Max Thompson finds his fellow sophomore receiver, Josh Piper, who had another big night. He takes it all the way to the end zone for 6 more. But it was really Michael Johnson who established the running game in this one that gave Washington such a cushion. They came out with a huge win in this one, scored 40 points on the night, and Michael Thompson ran for 160-plus yards. As I said, Max Thompson threw for 2 touchdowns, ran 1 more in, and Washington, they get to take a sigh of relief as they get back on the winning track. Let's go to McEnany Field in Sioux Falls, where O'Gorman took on Aberdeen Central. And O'Gorman was hoping to move to 6-2 on the year. Aberdeen Central trying to clinch a spot in the playoffs. They have Dylan Stabner back. So fun to watch this guy run. He rumbles down the field, does all the hard work, and then look at the sophomore. He gets the easy job. Ashton Hansen will take it in the rest of the way, 4-yard touchdown. We're tied up at 7 early, but it was pretty much all O'Gorman after that. And then the hammer, Tate Wishart, finds some space on the left side and gets inside the pylon to pull the Knights up 14-7. And then you get another dose of Wishart, the hammer, hammering one home. How many touchdowns does this guy have this year? He averages over 2 touchdowns per week. And that was his second touchdown of the game with less than 30 seconds left before halftime. Second half was pretty calm, 29-14. Excuse me. Let's move on to some 11A football as West Central trying to get an important win against Dell Rapids, who hadn't lost all season long. It starts out with Colin Rentz getting absolutely hammered up the middle. That's a nice tackle by Zacharias. And then a nice dump off again. Defense was the name of the game here. West Central protecting home field, but you can't keep Logan Ellingson out of the end zone for long. He takes one around on the jet sweep, and they are up 7-0. That's the way most of this game went. A 7-0, excuse me once again, a 7-0 lead, and then Rentz goes in the air. Look at this. It looks like a clear interception, doesn't it? West Central comes up with a football, right? Well, the referees would confer. What do you think? They said Dell Rapids has the ball before the change of possession. Vince Benedetto cannot believe it. He's going crazy, and he's one of the calmer guys that you'll see. You see Colin Rentz go into the air once again, finds the end zone, and that would be the 14th point. Dells takes the lead and holds it from there. So just as West Central was trying to tie this ball game up, 7-7, they get that call that goes against them, and Dell Rapids manages to stay ahead of the game and get the win. Let's hear from the victorious Warriors.
It was a fun one. It was tough all the way through, back and forth all game. Managed to score right before half. That was big. And then in the second half, we just kept on pounding and pounding. And defense came up big, shut them out, and it was an overall pretty fun game.
Good to hear from Tyler Wood there. He got that second touchdown after Ellingson got the first. And I'll tell you what, this Dell Rapids team, they're still undefeated game after game. They're fighting their way through. They're getting victories. They're probably getting overlooked a little bit, but West Central's going to look back to that non-interception as a huge play in that game. Let's take a look at some 11AA football. The Governors The Governors got started early. They went to Reagan Bolwig for the first touchdown of the game on their first drive. No problem, make it look easy. And then Garrett Stout finds Bolwig once again. 2 touchdowns, 2 drives. This is the Pierre Governors we've gotten used to. Huge night for the junior running back. McGuire Araski, first of 4 touchdowns on the night. And the hits kept coming, folks. It wasn't just on offense, it was a little bit on defense too. Cade Hinkle comes up with a big interception and returns it into Mitchell territory where Garrett Stout, you know he's going to take advantage of that. His 3rd touchdown throw of the night, Zach Lettler comes up with that one. And it's all Pierre. They go for 2 to make the score a nice even 28-0 at that point as River Iverson comes up with the 2-point conversion. Then in the second quarter, hey, we're just starting the second quarter, folks. McGuire Araski, he wasn't touched all night, and when he was, he broke through the first level. Another touchdown run, that's his 2nd of the night. And then Cade Hinkle, he says, I'm going to return an interception. Why not take one to the house on a punt? And that's exactly what he does, but look at this. Almost knocked out of bounds. He does get in the pylon. Another touchdown. That put him up 42-0 at that point. And then McGuire Araski, his touchdown number 3, touchdown number 4. He ran for 166 yards in the first half. Yes, this is all in the first half. They were up 55-0 at that point. The backups came in and they held Mitchell down. In the second half, Tucker Vilhauer, quarterback for Mitchell, and he played better. He got them moving, he got some first downs. Riley Johansson had any catches on the year, caught 3 big ones in the second half for 103, but you see the numbers there. Absolutely dominating in favor of Pierre. All right, let's move to Canton. They have had 5 consecutive shutouts, folks. 5 in a row. Well, it was 7-7 at the time our camera got there, so they gave up 1 finally. But I'll tell you what, Caden Verley didn't keep it that way for long. Caden Verley literally does everything. On the read option, will keep it, 27-yard touchdown, and then he kicked his own extra point. But coming back on the next possession, 3rd and long, John Overby finds Zach Whitty, one of the best tight ends in the state, and Whitty takes it 62 yards to pay dirt, tied up at 14. Guess who? Look at this. Did you see it? There was a handoff there. The handoff was to Caden Verley, who squirrels his way through the defense and cuts back across the field to take it the distance. 85 yards on the touchdown. What a trick play. He cannot catch his breath, but they say go out there and kick the extra point anyway. Catch your breath later. And then finally, somebody other than Verley scores one for Canton. Shaden Scheidt punches it in. And the Hawks were up 28-14 at halftime. Second half belonged to the Seahawks. Just could not keep up with the Seahawks. Sioux Falls Christian put up a nice game, but you see that on the graphic there. First points allowed since September 6th. That puts it in perspective. This Canton Seahawks defense doing their job, and they moved to 6-2 on the season. Let's go to 1 versus 1. Yes, that's right. Number 1 team in 9A taking on the number 1 team in 9AA. Viborg-Hurley, that team in 9AA. Neither team had lost this year. Neither team knew who they would play coming into this week until the seedings were set for the Corn Belt Championship. And that's what happened here. Trey Ortman hands to Colin Helma, takes it outside, and they get 6-0. This is easy, right, Canistota? Well, maybe not. Ensuing drive, Viborg-Hurley, 1st and 10. Chase Mason, a little screen pass to Angel Johnson. Nobody can tackle Angel Johnson. He puts the Jets on for 80 yards all the way to the house. 2-point conversion was good, and Cougars take their first lead of the game, 8-6, with just 7 minutes left in the first quarter. Early in the second, we finally get some more scoring. Chase Mason finds Tate Kessler in the end zone. 2-point conversion, no good this time. But Cougars feeling good, 14-6. They're up in this one, and they would bump it to 22-6 by halftime. And as we move to the third quarter, it started getting too easy. Angel Johnson gets the flip on the jet sweep. Look at that, he does the rest. Cougars notch another touchdown and the 2-pointer. They're up 30-6 at this point. The Pride had a few spirits here, there, and I'll tell you what, they get a nice 48-yard touchdown by Jacob Swenson in the middle of the fourth, trying to mount something, some type of comeback. But that would be the last of the scoring for the Hawks. It would be all Viborg-Hurley on this night. And in a week that so many people talked about how good this Canistota Freeman team was, not enough people were talking about how good this Viborg-Hurley team is. Chase Mason went for 371 total yards, scoring 5 touchdowns on the night. And if there's ever a statement game to be made, there was a big statement by Viborg-Hurley, and we'll be hearing from Coach Rob Kessler and I think one of the players on Viborg-Hurley on just how big this conference title game was for the Cougars. We've got much more coming up. Let's take a look. One more score, though, we didn't have video of this game, but this was a game between a couple of teams that are contenders in 9A. Britton Hecla had the lead most of this game, but Warner came back. Jackson McNeil had a nice night rushing. Ben Fishback threw the ball, but Britton Hecla staved him off, and as you see right there, Stan Haskins is back to doing Stan Haskins things. 200 rushing yards on the night and a huge night receiving for Cole Fosness. So I just wanted to point out that this Britton Hecla team is making a case, and they might sneak up to being one of those top 2 spots now with Canistota losing that game. It'll be interesting to see how all those seed points work out for the playoffs coming up in 9A. A lot of stuff to talk about. And we've got a lot more coming up in zone coverage where we'll have post-game reaction from some of these huge games in North and South Dakota throughout the night. We'll be back with more Varsity Sports Live coming up right after this.
Varsity Sports Live on Midco Sports Network is presented by Avera Orthopedics, South Dakota State University, and Farmers Union Insurance.
Welcome back to Varsity Sports Live. Jody Norstead here as we take you through our zone coverage beginning with North Dakota. We'll discuss the playoff picture for all 4 classes in just a bit, but before that, let's get some more reaction from those critical Wednesday night EDC games. Remember earlier in the year when Cheyenne was rolling along and then they had that hiccup against Shanley losing 42-20. That loss kind of sounded the alarm for the program. Jeremy Newton's team came out the next week and rolled Grand Forks Central, and then we saw them take care of first place Davies on Wednesday. It was an effort that didn't go unnoticed by the Mustangs head coach.
You know, they're just kind of finally starting to come together, and they're not taking teams lightly. They're not taking things for granted, and they're playing as hard as they can finally. We got to treat every game like it's our biggest game, and next week is our biggest game because it's our next one, and we're going to go after that the best we can.
Coach Newton, of course, referring to the fact that the Mustangs control their own destiny and can win the conference title next week with a win against Fargo South. Wednesday was a good night for West Fargo because the Packers picked up a huge win too by beating Shanley. And you saw how they used turnovers to fuel their success in that 17-14 win. Head coach Jay Gibson is well aware that style points, well, they don't matter in October. A win is a win, and his team needed it.
It's a real important win. It's a real good game to win because playoff games are that way. They come down to the very last possession, and whoever's got the ball, you either want to stop them or you want to score. So great experience for us. We work really hard on defense, and sometimes we can't score on offense, and that's why we don't win, but really proud of our guys. We tackled pretty well tonight and caused a lot of fumbles. The ball was on the ground a lot more than we got, but we did pick up a couple. We got a couple interceptions. Barron caught interception right at the end was really big.
Jay Gibson interviews, always worth listening to those. They're pretty interesting. So here's a look at the EDC following those 2 results. Cheyenne moves into a tie with Davies for first, and if Cheyenne defeats South, as I mentioned, next week, Mustangs are back-to-back EDC champs. That's what we know for sure. Remember, Fargo South plays at Red River tomorrow, so that's why the Bruins haven't played as many games as the rest of the teams in this playoff race. If South wins that, they're in that 3-way tie for third with Shanley, and this playoff race is about to get nuts because next week Davies plays at Shanley and South plays at Cheyenne. I'll be honest, I know Davies and Cheyenne will be the favorites in those 2 games, but I could see them going either way because Shanley and South have a ton of playmakers that can explode for big games at any moment. For the sake of craziness now, let's assume that South beats Red River tomorrow, and then Shanley and South pull off those upsets next week while West Fargo beats Central next week. If that happens, and it's not out of the question by any means, we could have a 5-way tie for the EDC title. So imagine being in a 5-way tie for first place and being the one team that misses the playoffs due to the third or fourth tiebreaker because only 4 can make it. We're going to have some nervous moments next week, and you know the intensity will be cranked up to the max with the playoff berths on the line, and for some teams, the potential to host a playoff game too. A reminder that you can watch Davies at Shanley live on Midco Sports Network at 7 o'clock next Friday night, one of the games with massive playoff implications. Things are a bit more simple in the West. Century controls its own destiny, but if Bismarck defeats Jamestown tomorrow, next week's Patriots-Demons showdown will be for the WDA title and the top seed. Mandan's win over Legacy, well, that was really important because it gives the Braves the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Sabres. Tomorrow, Legacy plays Minot, and for the Sabres, that's pretty much a win-and-in scenario. The Magi will be playing for their playoff lives tomorrow, and we'll see how Barry Holman's team comes out. Turnovers killed them in the loss to Bismarck on Monday. Now, the AA scene has a different look this year with 8 teams making the playoffs rather than 6 like the past couple of seasons. So no first-round byes either for the top seeds. It's pretty much identical to kind of how 3A does it. So here are the standings with 2 games to play. In the East, Hillsborough, Central Valley, and Valley City are both 3-0 in region play. The Highlanders dropped their first 2 games of the season, but have been rolling since, and they have a winnable game at Central Cass tomorrow before visiting the Burros for a potential region championship game in the regular season finale. A lot can still happen in the battle for the 3 and 4 spots. Kindred has HCV and Devils Lake to close, which will be tough games. Will we see Central Cass sneak in somehow? They're running out of time. In the West, Beulah has clinched the top seed. Hazen hosts St. Mary's tomorrow with the winner clinching the 2 seed and a home playoff game. As a result of Stanley forfeiting its season this year, Hazen has had 2 weeks to prepare for St. Mary's, so keep that in mind. We'll see what kind of tricks the Bison have up their sleeves tomorrow afternoon. All right, so how about the small schools? Class A and 9-man close out the regular season tomorrow. I'll show you my games to watch that have really big playoff implications. In Class A, we'll have our camera at Hatton Northwood against Thompson. The Tommies are in the playoffs no matter what, so the pressure is on Hatton Northwood. If the Thunder win, they get the 3 seed, and the Tommies are the 4. If the Thunder lose, well, that opens the door for Northern Cass and Ellendale Edgeley-Culm, depending on how those 2 teams do. We'll see if the Tommies can rumble their way to a win, or if Avery Thorsgaard is able to make some magic happen for Hatton Northwood. Bowman County will put its 6-game win streak to the test against New Salem Glen Ullin. A win for the Bulldogs or a win by Shiloh Christian over Dickinson Trinity gives Bowman County the region crown. New Salem has a shot at the region title if they beat Bowman, and Trinity upsets Shiloh. And don't sleep on Trinity. That team is going to be desperate because they need to win to make the playoffs. A loss puts Killdeer in the postseason, so the Cowboys will be cheering on Shiloh to beat Trinity tomorrow. As you can see on the bottom, Lisbon, Langdon Edmore Munich, and Velva have all clinched top seeds. Just like the last few years, the seeded teams will be organized with the QRF rating system, and the rest of the bracket fills out from there. So those top 4 seeds get organized in the QRF. In 9-man, North Prairie and St. John will be playing for the 3 and 4 seeds from Region 2. Ray Powers Lake can earn the Region 3 top seed by beating TGU, but a loss would give Central McLean the top seed, with the Outlaws dropping all the way down to 3rd in the region behind Mohall, Lansford, Sherwood. So Brock Vial and company are hoping to seal things up tomorrow for Ray Powers Lake. Grant County Flasher is in the postseason, but if they were able to spring the upset over undefeated Linton HMB, the Storm could get a crack at the 3 seed paired with a beach loss to Mount Regent New England. But I expect the Bucks to get that one. 3 of the 4 top seeds are secure with Finley, Sharon Hope, Page, Cavalier, and Linton HMB. Now remember, 9-man transition from 6 regions to 4 regions this year, so they'll use the same QRF formula and bracket that Class A did last year, which means we have potential for an all-East or all-West championship game, sort of like Class A has had the last 2 years with Langdon Edmore Munich and Hillsborough Central Valley reaching the Dakota Bowl each of the last 2 seasons. Anyway, tomorrow will be a busy day with tons of playoff implications, but that's what this time of year is all about. We'll keep you filled in on social media and, of course, on this show as well. The NDHSAA tells me they'll have the playoff brackets finalized on Sunday morning, and then next week, after analyzing the brackets, I can give you my championship game predictions for Class A and 9-man. How about that? Until then, buckle up, because this should be more wild than that epic 2012 Andera family vacation. Right, Jandy? Back to you.
Yeah, that was a good one. How did you know about that, by the way, Jody? Jody, working every night of the week on high school football, and then on his day off on Friday, comes in, stays up late, and does Varsity Sports Live. You just got to respect that guy. We've got some reaction in South Dakota as well, and let's start with that big AAA matchup between Harrisburg and Brandon Valley. An epic game for Brandon Valley, who unleashed it in the second half. After the game, we caught up with Chad Garrow and Parker Reed.
And this one was a big confidence booster for us because we knew this was an important game for us, and it was close in the first half, and then the second half it came and took it, and it's a huge win, good momentum for us.
A long time ago, that I would like to eclipse that mark, and so now to have 119 it feels really good. But right now, I mean, it's all about the kids in our program. I'm surrounded by great coaches and unbelievable kids and things like that, and you don't win that many games with a bad staff or bad kids. So.
Garrow talking about that 119th victory that puts him at #1 all-time in Brandon Valley school history for wins. That's a good run that Chad Garrow's been on. But that second half, the light switched and they took off and got that win. That'll put them at #3 seed if things play out from here. Let's look at Steve Steele. What else does he have to say after a 75-point performance? Let's hear from the coach.
I think our guys came out well and executed really well in the pass game. The wind died down, which was helpful, but, we ran some crisp routes, and Garrett had some time in the pocket and really went through his progressions and found the right receivers.
So, yeah, not much more to say than Pierre is fully dominant and better than advertised. They were really good tonight. 11A had a great matchup between West Central and Dell Rapids, and Dell Rapids just keeps on winning. Huge win for the Warriors tonight.
Our kids played tough for 4 quarters. We knew coming in that it was going to be a tough game. West Central does a lot of good things offensively and defensively. Going in, knowing that, and then between the two teams, it's always a tough game. So we kind of expected what we saw tonight. They do some things defensively, bring in pressure. They cause problems on that side of the ball. Luckily, we were able to put up a couple of scores, even still, and hold on to the win.
So next week, Dell Rapids at T, that's 1 versus 2, and West Central is hosting Canton, one of the hottest teams in the class. So 2 very good games for those 2 teams coming up next week. Then we had 1 versus 1. Nobody was talking about Viborg-Hurley. Well, now people are talking about them. Let's hear from the Cougars after the game.
Just playing our game. I told the guys at the beginning of the night, if we just come out and we come at them right away and we don't let up and we trust in our game plan, that we come out victorious, and that's what happened.
We knew coming into practice all week we had to focus up and just get through it, came out fast, and just kept going through 100% all game.
We go one step at a time. It goes one step at a time. This was step 8, and we're going on to step 9. Whoever that may be, we get to play them at home, and they just need to come ready to go.
Big night for Chase Mason. Angel Johnson, by the way, 143 yards receiving, 8 receptions, 3 touchdowns. They put the state on notice, that's for sure. We'll wrap this thing up coming up right after this break with the rundown. Let's talk about what happened in high school football, and Brandon Valley's big second half gives them a win on the road, 47-21. Washington back in the winning column. Max Thompson accounted for 3 touchdowns, and Michael Johnson ran for 160 yards in their win. Watertown got up early, but it doesn't look like it by the score. Roosevelt cruises 64-16. And then Tate Wishart, he got 2 touchdowns in the first half, and that would be enough to take care of Aberdeen Central. More AAA action. Tommy Thompson was on a roll all night long, finds Leo Kay in the corner for a touchdown, 50-21, no problem. Speaking of no problem, holy smokes. Pierre, they're the real deal. They're better than the real deal. This might be the best team in the state. 75-7, domination over Mitchell. And then in 11A, Dell Rapids went on the road and finished it off. That was their 13th point of the night. They won 14-0. Canton finally gave up a touchdown after 5 consecutive shutouts, but Vanilla K, Caden Verley, went for touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. Yeah, he was tired at the end of this one. Number 1 versus number 1. Well, it was Canistota Freeman early, but Viborg-Hurley's Chase Mason and Angel Johnson had something to say about it. Big win for the Cougars. A road win for Cheyenne, taking down Davies, a little bit of an upset. And West Fargo, they take down the number 3 team in the state, Shanley, a huge win to shape the EDC. This thing is not over in that conference. Grant County Flasher had trouble putting points up. Kidder County shows what they can do. Went on the road and absolutely dominated 36-0. And then 2 of the top teams in 9-man football in the best highlights of the week. Cavalier needed overtime. I think that's Cavalier. Yeah, that's Cavalier. They needed overtime, but they got the win on their home field and beat New Rockford-Sheyenne 22-20. Thanks for tuning in. It was a great night of football. We have a couple more weeks of Varsity Sports Live. Thanks for watching.